Welcome back. Second video recorded on a Friday. Welcome back to the channel. Earn here, I buy and sell and trade and collect, and I vend, and I grade. Today's video is going to be about grading. Grading with PSA, CGC. Let's just talk about this general topic because I think it's probably the best way, honestly, to grow your business, grow your collection. And there's obviously a lot of requirements and stipulations, but let's talk about it. First things first, if you have not liked and commented on the first video on my channel and subscribed, you need to do so because I'll be picking a winner of the Destined Rivals booster box ASAP, probably by the next video that comes after this. And all you gotta do to enter is that you help me out, I give you a chance to win. Everybody, well, not everybody, myself and one other person are gonna be happy. But you get what I'm saying. That's all you gotta do. Let's see. Let's talk about grading. Now, I will be completely frank. I think that people think grading is way more difficult than it is. And bear in mind, well, let me give you some context. I've graded north of probably 5,000 cards, 6,000 cards in the last 4 years. I graded the most over the last 12 months. And I typically send out, well, maybe more than 5,000, hundreds of cards a month to PSA, CGC, wherever else. And a lot of the stuff that I send, it's stuff that I've sourced recently. And so it's stuff I buy from Japan. It's singles I buy at card shows. It's a steady, somewhat steady part of me growing the collection, me growing the business. And I don't ever see myself not doing it. It's where I generate a good amount of money, and it's where I generate a lot of different chips to trade for the things that I like. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm someone who heavily grades. I'd probably say I'm in the top, I don't know, below the top echelon people who do it. And, you know, this video comes from, I see a lot of sentiment around PSA changing their grading standards to, if you're unaware, they changed the grading standards. They updated their grading standards to say they're going to be a little bit more strict on centering. That's basically it. But at the same time, if you know with grading, it ends up being subjective at the end, and the grader can decide depending on kind of the overall, I guess, presentation of the card that they're grading, if they want to, let's say, give it a 9 or a 10, because let's say it's a pristine card, but centering a slide off outside of the normal guidelines the PSA saying that cards need to fall in. A grader could give that card a 10 if they wanted to. And so, you know, this is not anything new. This has happened for a long time, but I think people are freaking out because they updated their terms of service to say specifically it needs to fall within these certain percentages of centering on the front and on the back. And, you know, since that update, I guess that was like 6 months ago, late last year, I forget. You see more on social and YouTube and Discord, people kind of upset with their graded returns, you know, saying, I've heard this person too from friends and other people, oh, they're getting more strict, and you know, they're not as loose as they used to be on grading, and don't send any cards that you aren't for sure are that you are not sure are going to get a 10, right? And it makes me chuckle because, you know, truthfully for me, at the end of the day, if the grading process ultimately becomes a subjective decision by someone, then everything before that, centering, the grade, the score, whatever, like, it doesn't really matter because the person who decides at the very end has the final say. And, you know, I honestly think that with PSA, the reason why they updated their terms of service is because they wanted to better compete with grading companies who actually have clear standards. PSA standards have not been clear for the longest time. You'll find the wildest PSA 10s and compared to PSA 9s, 8s, and even 7s, and their gem rate grading process, or maybe the output, has been wildly consistent for years. This is why you hear, people say like 2 certs, so cards that start with the number 2 in the certification. They were graded in an era where grading standards are more lax, right? And so a lot of the collectors who buy that stuff are people who are trying to buy the grade, not the card, or trying to buy the card, not the grade, and they don't want a card that is a kind of false 10, if you will. So here's my honest take. First one. I don't think that the guideline change did anything. I think it was purely cosmetic, and if anything, it's something for them to point to say, here's how we grade, right? And I'm saying this because in my experience, bear in mind, I've graded thousands of cards at this point. I still have the same amount of cards that come in. They get a 9 or a 10 that probably deserve a 9 or a 10. Like, there are very few cards nowadays compared to back then where I feel like I got a 9 because their grading standards change. And I do, I don't do the most volume, but I probably do more grading than 99% of the people in the hobby, right? And the funny thing is, though, when you see people who complain and give the feedback that like the grading standards are harder, typically what you'll find is they don't submit that much in volume. And so their opinion on the grading standards, it's really just a dice roll. Do they agree or do they not agree with how PSA graded their most recent cards? Knowing well that there's always going to be this subjective variable and this variance in consistency. You follow me? So, I just got back 300 cards from PSA. There is not a single 9 that I think deserved a 10. There is not a single 10 that I think probably should have been a 9. You follow me? There aren't 10s in that batch of cards that I sent and got back that I think I kind of got lucky with because they didn't enforce their guidelines. I think that they all were part of the normal rigmarole working with those guys, and I got the grades I expected, and that's basically it. More than half the cards obviously were Japanese, and so like if you get 9s in Japanese, that's rough because it's very hard to get. The gem rate for Japanese Modern is incredibly high. But for English, many of the cards I got back, I would say I feel pretty good about. And, I go on a side rant. When you hear people talking about their gem rate really means absolutely nothing because you can control the input. I could submit 100 ultra modern Japanese cards today, and I would probably go 95 to 99 to 100 out of 100. That's how well the cards are printed. And so that gem rate percentage honestly doesn't mean anything. It's like going to the park, shooting free throws by yourself, and then telling everyone what your free throw percentage is. You follow me? It's just like a useless stat padding stat that, like, if you grade older cards, vintage cards, which are well known to be harder to get 9s and 10s, right? Then obviously your gem rate's going to be low. Anyway, that's just like a rant. I just find it funny that we're in a day and age where people have to brag about their gem rates as if like it qualifies them to do something, like they have some type of advantage. Like, we're all submitting different things, and depending on the era, the language, like everyone knows that older cards are harder to grade. And straight out of the pack, they don't look as good as modern cards. So anyway, that's like my mini rant. Um, I want to talk about grading because it is, I would say, probably the most useful skill that I learned when I got back into the hobby. It was incredibly daunting at first. Oh my god, do I ship? How do I ship? Do I use packing peanuts? Do I use bubble tape or bubble wrap? Do I put a love letter in there? Do I slip a 20? Do I put all the cards like front to back or back to back or up? Like what happens when I do this? Like you get all these questions that pop up, all this anxiety that's produced and created. And like honestly, looking back, I wish I would have graded more. And what held me back was I thought the process was way more complicated than it was. But in reality, you know, it's really simple. So if you can grade yourself, I highly recommend it. It is how you get, I guess in modern cards, it's a little bit different. You know, I graded the Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved that I pulled. Somehow it came out of the pack looking pretty good. Graded it, got a 10. That card's like a $50, $60 card, I think. And PSA 10 it goes for 400. 8x my money, right? If you're someone who loves to chase and you like that thrill of a surprise, opening up packs, I think that for me, actually, I think this is probably true for a lot of people too. The feeling that you get looking at grades or seeing your grades, there is no other feeling in the hobby outside of, I guess, pulling like the top shade, like a Moonbrown or some ridiculously expensive card. But going through your grades when you send like 50 cards off, 100 cards off, for me, it never gets old. It's like Christmas morning where you got presents to unwrap and you can scroll through them. Bear in mind though, it can be quite disappointing. It can be a miserable experience, especially if you like to go slow and reveal things slow. But it's fun. And I think the beauty in it is this is how you get a premium on your money, on the money that you spent, on the cards that you sourced. Sure, it takes time. It takes a long time. It took me 3 months to get some of these cards back. The last batch of 300. I have about 400 out still. But the feeling you get, the rush, the sense of pride when you grade something and it gets a 10 that you didn't think could get a 10. Like, if you're someone who grades, you know what I mean. If you've never graded before, it's hard to relate. But it is this insane, euphoric, fun feeling that, I'll be honest, if grading was removed from the hobby, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. Yeah, that's a true statement. If grading was removed from the hobby and I could not grade things myself, I don't think I would be able to enjoy the hobby as much as I do. Because there's this like, dare I say gambling? There is a gambling aspect to it. You're rolling the dice. But the thing with grading is when you buy a card, let's say like an alternate art Sword and Shield card, like one of the evolutions, right? You're buying in at $300, $250, whatever the price is, depending on the card that you're getting. Even if you get a 9, you're either going to lose a very little amount of money, 5 or 10%, or you're going to break even. And so really what you lose out on is the opportunity cost of that money that you spent, and then time, because you have to wait. Well, I guess it's not really, you don't lose out on time. You have to wait, but you don't lose out on time. And so it's one of the rare things in the hobby that if you can source, and by the way, let's go back into why I think PSA and all these companies are doing well. There are a lot of people who are grading who have no idea how to grade. I think that's what pulls down a lot of the pop reports. Oops. I think that's why you see a lot of cards that have high pops and you see a lot of 9s. I don't think that I don't think the people who grade these days are all experts. I think there are a lot of people who just submit what they see because it's an expensive card and they just let the dice roll because they don't know any better. It's easy to pre-grade. It's easy to look at cards and just, in your head, just be like, okay, does this look pretty good? Does this look as close to what a perfect card would look like? And you work backwards from there. And I think there's a lot of inertia for people in like trying to learn this as if like they could get it wrong. No grader on this planet gets everything right. That is a earn collects fact. Earn collects fact. Statement, principle, value. No collector is ever 100% accurate. None, ever. It's not how it works. Because even if you were the best person picking cards and deciding which one to choose and which one to decide, which one to submit, what looks good or not, especially with PSA, it'll always come down to the grader. And it's funny about the grader part. I've heard the most ridiculous conspiracy stories about graders and like, I hear that they use 2 computers. One to cross-check what other PSA 10s look like. And if yours don't look like their PSA 10s, then you're not going to get a 10. I've heard that before. I've heard that there are certain graders who you just got to figure out their name, who they are. And if you do, then they're going to grade your cards more easily or easier. I've heard that before. Someone in one of my Discord, in a Discord meeting with friends, sent me an Instagram post. There's someone who slipped like a $50 bill with their submission, and then PSA wrote back to them, wrote back to them an email saying we're sorry, we cannot accept this payment. There's so many theories, and like some of them might actually be true, but at the end of the day, you can't prove it unless like one of the employees goes rogue and starts like telling everyone on podcasts and stuff. You just gotta accept that there is some subjectivity. And, truthfully, with a company like Tag, I really like the idea of like making grading easier. I like the idea of having data verified imagery that shows you exactly what the cards look like and where the damage points and the surface issues. I really like that. I like that because I am a technologist. I like technology. It just is very interesting to me, right? I like the transparency, but, and I mentioned this in the podcast with Retro and Josh, I don't think any of that matters. I think for Tag, appealing to the whales and the people who, Retro brought up this point, appealing to people who like really want to complete sets, that's important because they're like the hyper engaged user who is going to drive a lot of the value or going to pump a lot of the value for the hard to find, pristine copies of cards. But I don't think that for the average consumer, people know how to read. That sounds bad. I don't think the average consumer cares or understands how to care. You feel me? Like, I don't think, and why do I think this? When people buy PSA cards, 99% of people do not buy the card, they buy the grade. They don't even look at the grade. They don't even look at the card's actual condition. All they look at is this a 10 or not? And on the rare occasion that the card is obviously like destroyed, they might look at the card. That rarely happens. But when you go to a show, people pick up a 10. Most of the time, they're just gonna buy it if they want it. They're not gonna like scrutinize like, why did PSA give this a 10? The centering looks bad, or there's shipping, or those sorts of things. Like, it doesn't really happen. And so that's where I'm basing a lot of my position from. I don't think people care, mainly because I think people are inherently lazy. I'm pretty lazy too. I like that kind of stuff. It's interesting, but for the next person, the common person, the person who's also collecting, I don't think it matters. And at the end of the day, if not enough people care about those numbers, that kind of stuff is no better than like I don't know how to explain this. it's just nice to have, right? I don't think people are going to be upset that they have a 954 gem mint over a 971 gem mint. The difference is negligible, literally, but also it, there's no additional premium or value, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's tag. Grading, PSA. It's not as easy. It's not as hard as people think. The hardest part of really the entire hobby, as you're trying to grow your collection and grow your business, it's sourcing. It's reliably being able to find clean copies of cards, good booster boxes, clean booster boxes, product at scale. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I'm yawning. Jeez. That is the hardest part of the hobby. Figuring out how to do that reliably, going to shows, hitting up the right vendors, finding the right cards, the right condition cards. Because the right cards, it's pretty easy to figure that out. You can go on TCG Player, you can go to eBay. You just look at last sold. You look at the raw cost of those cards, and you look at the 10 price, and then you go look at the gem rate of the cards that are submitted, how many are actually in 10, and that'll give you a pretty good understanding. Okay, if the gem rate's really, really low, like with Scarlet and Violet, that typically correlates and means raw cards out of the pack are probably going to be not a 10. Now, it's not a causal relationship, but it highly correlates, because if all the cards did come out of the pack and they look great and they were 10s, then the people who submit them, you would expect that the gem rate would be higher and would be a higher percentage, right? But it doesn't, I gotta be careful how I frame this. It does not mean exactly 1 for 1. Gem rate means cards are better out of the pack. It just means what's been submitted and what's been graded by the grading company. I am processing. Sometimes I feel like a robot, where I'm just talking and then my brain freezes. This is awkward. The different grading companies. I'm a big fan of Tag because they're new and they have a pretty good operation going. Quietly rooting for them because I like it when the incumbent is challenged. This happens a lot in just general technology. Whoever's market leader is not going to innovate, not going to change if they have the majority market share, and they're going to treat things, we're going to be status quo, right? They're not incentivized to actually evolve the market as fast as evolve the product as fast as people would like them to. I like new companies coming in who are proven, who have a good team, good technology, and they know how to run a solid shop, solid operation. I like that. That's good. That's good for the whole industry, right? And you can say what you want. PSA is always going to be number one. It doesn't matter. They probably will always be number one. What matters is they're challenged to do more and do better, because I've been grading since 2020, maybe 2021, 2020, and I feel like the grading experience is very suboptimal. It's suboptimal from, I'm trying to figure out how I want to frame this. You know what? I probably just was making some stuff up. Ignore me. Sometimes you get an idea and you're like, yeah, talk about it. And then you try to elaborate and your brain freezes. That's what happened. I'm excited about new technologies, new companies. And with Tag, maybe I can get in and get an early, pristine copy, a scored 99 out of 1,000 card. And I get it in early, I get it cheap, I hold it, and I'm able to flip it once they start to do well. Like that's real opportunity, right? And I don't think it's that big of a risk because they're an established company and they know what they're doing. Anyway, that's not about Tag. there's an interesting duality to making grading more accessible and at the same time making sure that people think it's hard. Let me explain. From my position, I sell graded cards a lot. They go to average Joe consumer. They go to, hold on, I gotta get over this lane. They go to streamers. They get sold at shows. And a lot of the time, you get buyers who are completely new. They are buying their first graded card. They're buying an expensive graded card because they're too scared to grade it themselves. They are trying to complete a set, and so they've been chasing a certain card, and they don't have the means to go source that card and grade it themselves. And so the suboptimal kind of how do I want to frame this? I did not drink enough water today. Grading being suboptimal is important to the hobby because there are people who will pay the premium to have someone else do all the work and pay the premium for that PSA 10 they've been chasing. And in a way, you want grading to grow. You want the exposure to grading to grow, right? You want more people to know about it. But at the same time, as someone who sells graded cards, you don't want more people to learn. You don't necessarily want more people to learn how to grade. Because if more people learn how to grade, it removes from your potential buyer pool of people who would buy the cards that you've graded. Does that make sense? And so, well, at the same time, let's just take Tag Again, for example. What they're planning to do with the grading pods is like really good, great, awesome. At the same time, you kind of don't want a lot of people to do it and then be experts at it because it removes from the pool of people who would potentially buy from you. It sounds kind of messed up, kind of effed up, but just being completely honest, like, I am not incentivized for grading itself, for more graders to enter the market. I am incentivized, though, for grading to become more popular. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. So it's an interesting time in that grading is growing, more cards are being submitted. Although I do think, the number of unique people who submit cards compared to the amount of cards that are being submitted, I'm pretty sure it's like a small majority of people who drive like come on, man. Almost bumped me. That drive 90+% of the grading volume. And there's shops out there. Come on. Oy. Should have honked. Person's backing up into a spot. They whip this way into the lane. Almost hit me. Jerk. The big streamer shops, the big streams, some of them grade thousands of cards a week, a month. 10,000 plus cards a month. Like, some of these shops are running through cards, chasing black labels, sending hundreds, thousands of cards to Beckett just to chase a couple black labels to sell them because they get such a ridiculous premium. Some of them are constantly sending out cards to PSA, CGC, and just churning through all that in their streams every single day. I don't think there are that many common people who are like, oh, let me try this PSA thing. Let's make a submission. Oh, I'm going to submit 10 cards this month. I could be wrong, but I have not really seen too many people who do that. Typically, if you're new and you're interested, it's probably a lot easier just to have someone do it for you or just to buy the graded card yourself. So anyway, that's the graded card market, grading. Hopefully this video was interesting, informative, useful, not useful. You tell me. Was this video any interesting? Look, I'm not an angel, okay? I can't always make videos while driving that make sense. Sometimes, I think I've said this before, sometimes I record and I just don't upload the footage because I don't even know what I said or talked about. It's just like, you know, and you know, you can't always be on. You got to do your best, but I try my best when I can. Um, and yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Happy Friday. I'm not sure when you're going to watch this, or even if you will watch this. Don't forget to like and comment in the first video on the channel. Thank you if you're new here and you're recent. I appreciate the support more than you know. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Take care of yourselves and don't be dirty, filthy investors. Bye.